My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path. Well, hello.
Well, hello. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm great. Yeah.
Good.
How about you? How are you?
I'm good. Good. Yeah. It's been a while since we recorded because we had recorded so many.
Yeah.
And so it's just like getting back into the groove. Yeah. So holidays just passed. More coming up.
Yeah.
And so talking about the anxiety that can come around the holidays as well as the joyous times. And then the experience of reverting back to younger emotional parts of ourselves when we're around family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right before we started, you mentioned something, but you didn't give me specifics. So where do you want to start?
Wherever you want to start.
Oh, well, go ahead. You said something about Thanksgiving.
So we went to where my daughter lives to see her.
Yes.
And she's 24.
Yes.
And as you know, it was planes, trains, and automobiles for that week, et cetera. But that is not what it is. In any event, this was her first hosting of Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it has nothing to do really with that. But I noticed that she's my only child, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We talk baby all the time. Did you notice that?
Well, I have noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
She does, and I do too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us more.
I don't understand that. I was wondering, afterwards, if that's something that I've always done with her, which wouldn't surprise me. She's my baby girl, right?
Yeah.
But she's my baby, period. I honestly don't know what it's about, babe. It just, we both did it, and it was definitely falling back into a role.
Yeah.
Because she speaks business now.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's very mature and professional when she's talking about business, but we were both like young, like 6, maybe younger. And not really, because we had some great conversations.
Yeah.
Significant, substantial topics and vulnerable topics, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
You engaged her around some of the things that we're doing, and she was mature with you. But when we were out doing activities, she and I would do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We didn't do it during the game that we played.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah.
So what do you suppose that is? In the most kind way that you can put it. Oh.
Yeah.
Because my little boy could get his feelings hurt really fast on this topic.
Yeah, sure.
It's a tender relationship, I mean.
Yeah.
When I got divorced, we had a rough patch.
Yeah.
When she was 18 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken a lot of work on my part, which was needed. Mm-hmm. And she's done a lot of work too.
Yeah.
But that was my responsibility.
Sure.
And so it is interesting. And she looks up to me for advice.
Yeah.
Calls me about advice and always compliments how much I know and how wise I am and all those things. And I know a thing or two. I've been on the planet for quite some time now, but parts of me are still little boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hence, part of that is good, and part of it, maybe not so much.
So when I think about it, I'm initially thinking about it more in general. I think about it from a physiology perspective that under stress, we go to our oldest patterns. And, part of training is teaching our body that it can do other things. But when situations are, more unknown, and Thanksgiving for us was more unknown,
Sure.
right? New place that she's living, new place she's living in, spending time with her, boyfriend's family.
Yeah.
Just the whole, process, was new.
Different city.
Right. I mean, we had been traveling with a certain amount of chaos for 4 days before that.
Sure.
And so I think there were a lot of things that contribute to how far we regress.
And how long.
And how long we regress. Sure. And there's some questions I had that came up when you started sharing it, because this isn't something we've talked about. So, about Thanksgiving.
Right.
And so, so knowing that our body likes what's familiar in order to find safety. And so I think you also hadn't seen each other in person for over a year.
Yeah.
And so I think particularly when we've had some trauma in our relationship, that we tend, even physically, not just emotionally, mentally, but physically, like kind of where do I fit, here. Our body likes to know what's coming. It's always predicting what's coming. Mm-hmm. Literally, it's always predicting what's coming. It's why we can drive places we always drive without even thinking about it, unless something unpredictable happens. Our body likes that efficiency. It likes the known. And so I think, and again, it's looking for safety. So I think about it from that perspective. And then, I don't know. The thought that comes to mind, babe, is maybe that 6-year-old piece was a time that felt most safe in your relationship. Maybe it was more playful then. Maybe it was more connected then. Maybe it was, I don't know, more precious in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Till she was about 12.
Yeah.
And that's a typical, evolution, but it is interesting.
Yeah. So I think about it physiologically first. And, there was a movie, I wish I could remember for sure what it was called, years ago. I think it was called The Family Stone, but I don't remember exactly. But it was a holiday movie, and I think it was about that. Like, when people get around their family, they revert to the age they were when they kind of like distanced from the family, because it's like, well, I knew you, I lived with you until I was 18. And so that's most familiar.
Sure.
Our siblings don't know who we are as an adult unless they're still with us in some way. No different than my children don't know me in my work setting, right? They may come by the office, but that's not the same person that sits with clients or facilitates retreats. We have different areas of our life that our family isn't exposed to. So then we step back in our family system. Yeah. And our body's like, ooh, I know this. And I remember, first noticing that myself probably 4 years ago, with my ex-husband's family, that I think I had any awareness. because, I had this experience of him without his family connected for a while. And then I remember the first time I saw him around his brothers, and I was like,
who is that
I
guy?
don't know who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And I remember saying something to him, and he was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
I'm like, you literally became a different person. And he was like, right. I mean, just had no awareness. And so for me, that was my first awareness that those things happened.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I started observing and paying more attention. And then we had like a family, dinner with his entire family. And again, saw things come out, and I was like, fascinating, just parts I hadn't seen.
Sure.
And again, having conversation on the way home, and him being like, we do? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I didn't even know that those are the things that we did. I'm like, right, because you've always been doing them. And so, yeah, but I still think of it in regards to physiology, safety, stress. How much stress are we under? How much stress are they under? How much stress is in the family system, right, that's happening? I mean, I often see, like with my own family, like people revert to certain roles that they played when we were younger.
Sure. How about you?
Well, for sure, until more recently, I would say in the last 10 or 11 years, I'm sure I revert to some roles that I'm not even aware of around my family, that I just don't have any awareness of. I'm sure if we videotaped them, I could see them. Be like, ooh.
Yeah. Watch the gorillas.
Right. But I'm typically an observer, around my family. I mean, I used to be like a jokester. I used to be a big storyteller. I used to want a lot of attention. I mean, there were a lot of roles that I played in my family that I don't play anymore. So that isn't interesting to me.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need the same, energy exchange with them like I used to. So I feel like I more hold on to myself around my family now than I used to. So, but I still have to be intentional about, like when we were over last month for something, birthdays, and we weren't going to be there for Thanksgiving because we were going to be with Libby. And so, I was getting questions about who of my kids was going to be there. And I was like, I don't know. And, this one's going to be here, and, I'll talk to these ones, but I don't know. And then, they need to be there. And I, and I said, I work really hard to not use guilt to try to encourage particular behavior out of my children. And then, there was the response like, well, that's not guilt. And I was like, but it is, they each have their own life and their own autonomy. And I want them to choose to be here, but they may choose something else.
Sure.
And I'm not going to try to make them do it, even if I want that for them, because whatever those natural consequences would be, I believe that that's important.
Interesting.
So I can tell them what I want.
Right.
Right?
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
It's just so it's what I try to teach Libby is make intentional choices.
Right.
Not just, you didn't think about it that way, because
Right.
when you're younger, you don't think about so many things like with
Right.
your parents who are both in their 80s.
Right.
It's on my mind that
Right.
time maybe short, maybe they'll live to be 110. I don't know.
We don't know.
But,
Right.
If nature takes the course it's taken through our lifetimes,
Right.
you just never know. And so
Right.
I mention it to you all the time, but I don't think, from my perspective, it's not a shaming piece. And we're kind of switching topics, but it is interesting.
Right.
Just to have those conversations, which is, hey, just keep in mind, that I don't want you to have any regrets. And I mean, and there's a way to walk around that. I guess the regrets piece could cause shame, but just understand grandma and grandpa aren't going to be here forever.
Yeah.
So make an intentional choice about it. Maybe split some time.
Right. Right. Options.
Yeah.
As opposed to demands.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I learned, with one of my kids, who has type 1 diabetes, I can't make him do anything.
Sure.
Right. Like I can teach him and I can give him information and I can explain my perspective.
Yeah.
But what I knew is in order for him to make choices out of integrity, that was really all I could do.
Yeah.
Was to give him information and then he had to make choices. And then he did, right? He did learn.
As he matured, sure.
Right.
He has.
Right.
But pushing.
Right.
With many people.
They just push back.
Here comes the resistance.
Right. Right. And so I'm aware, that how I, communicate or how I share information, is very different than like maybe demonstrated like in my family system. So, but I also don't, carry it. But I recognize that is something that I have to do deliberately as opposed to just avoid saying anything because that's an option too.
It is.
Yeah. Which I think happens. We tend to avoid or confront.
So let's put that back in terms of how we revert to different ages when we're with family or different modes of behavior. The avoidance could be more prevalent in a situation like, and I don't know who you were talking to, if it was a parent or a sibling, but the kids need,
Yeah.
And I don't know how was your experience with that? I mean, it sounds like you didn't revert, but that would be easy to do.
Oh, yeah. No, in that particular...
All of a sudden you become the young girl answering mom, if it was mom. Right?
Yeah. No, in that particular one, I didn't revert. I was just like,
Right.
I said what I said, and then I did, tell my kids, grandma and grandpa would love to see you.
Nice.
So just... be thoughtful, that they have their own sense of their own mortality and they want to spend time, with you too. So, and it doesn't.
What a nice way of saying it. That's what I was looking for because my way was shaming.
Oh.
Not intentionally, but it was more practical, which is, people die.
Oh, yeah.
But that brings an element of shame versus the way you just said it. So say it for us again.
Yeah, I just said.
Teach us again.
Grandma and grandpa have their own sense of their mortality.
Yeah.
Right.
And they would like to spend time with you too.
Right. And they would like to spend time with you too.
That's so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It.
And I know my mom did say something about, I don't remember exactly, but it was something about them loving her or something. And I said, no. I said, oh, no, Mom. My children love you. It's just they have their own lives too.
Yeah.
And that's just not how I communicate with them.
Yeah.
So, and so the message to them was, grandma and grandpa have their own sense of their mortality, right? And they want to spend time with you.
Yeah. Nice.
So, yeah. And everyone that was in town did go. So they did not go to the follow-up reunion the next day except my youngest. And so, and that, again, is their choice. I mean, I'm glad that they chose to go on Thanksgiving, and I'm glad they spent that time. And I also want them to know they have choice. But that has always been part of parenting. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another aspect of what we're talking about is for when we're in that situation where a family member is wanting us to go along or whatever is, your kids know healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And they know how to speak up for themselves. And
Yes.
so I think, it can be really hard when you start getting that pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've had you one day because they want you more,
Mm-hmm.
but hey, I've got other obligations, and being able to stand in that and feel good about yourself in the process is really important. And what I know about your children is they were fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Despite what anybody else may have felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But of course, the people that are feeling that are also going back to their inner child, right?
Yeah,
Of
right.
abandonment, etc.
Oh, yeah.
The loving me piece.
Yeah. Choose me, love me,
Yeah.
see me, value me.
As we all do.
As we all do. Yeah.
So I had this
Yeah.
thought. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
A couple of things in the process of interacting with family. It used to drive my ex crazy when I was around my siblings.
Yeah.
Because of the way we act.
Yeah.
And we do act different.
Yes.
And I think it was threatening.
Yeah.
Control.
Yeah.
It could have been a million things. I'm not sure because we didn't have conversations like this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a pleasant experience afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the conversation would just be,
Yeah.
very judgmental.
Sure. Sure.
In other words, I don't like you when you're around your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know that it's necessarily bad as long as we're aware of it, right? To step into how we interact with family.
Sure.
I like playing with my sisters.
Yeah. And oh, babe.
It's complex.
It is, because I think it can look like so many things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I was thinking was, I don't mind the playing. I don't like it when people aren't kind to each other. I don't like it when people are trying to control other people's behavior. One of the things that I would say that I witnessed, once really clearly was your loss of power. And that was really hard to watch, as your partner, because I was like, he just lost all of his power. He just became a 4-year-old little boy. And that was hard to see. And not from I don't know. I guess it made me sad. It didn't make me angry. I just hadn't ever seen that from you, and so, you're...
Well, this is with siblings?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the situation was because obviously it was subconscious or not harmful for me.
Oh, right. It was for sure subconscious. And I don't really, I couldn't go back and be like, oh, this was happening then and that's what that was about.
Right.
I just remember witnessing it and being like, whoa. And I think that probably is common often in family situations where your role in the family was one of no power. And I don't mean you, just you, Walker. I mean in family systems.
Right.
That you're going to have siblings who didn't have power, and to find safety reverted to, I don't know, a more dependent role or a more pleasing role, because that's what was safe for them. I think some people... if you have more passive parents, you're going to have a sibling or non-engaged or neglectful parents, like you'll have a sibling who is like in charge, right?
Right.
I
have one.
Yeah.
Because both of my parents were extremely neglectful.
Yeah.
We were on our own.
Yeah. And so I think, again, we step back into those, roles, that we played. I did a family session, the other day, with adult, siblings, because I'm, trying to learn more, about, trying to help this person, find more freedom. And for me, understanding the roles that people play in families is really helpful. And not just, the person that I'm working with, but, the role of the sibling or the role of the parent. Because it can help me figure out places that they get stuck emotionally that I may not see when they're in my office because they're not playing that role with me the same way they play it with their family.
Right.
Like there may be some transference, countertransference that happens.
Right.
Right. But it's not the same as putting them in a role with their family where then it's like, oh, well, I've never even seen that part. And that happens sometimes even with spouses, like, maybe, I'll work with somebody for a year or two and then they bring their spouse with them. And then I'm like, oh, I have not seen that part of you, right? And so it's not just our family, but
Right.
any
different
longer,
situations. I've seen that happen with you in
sure,
a different situation,
sure,
not family.
Yeah. And so parts of you come out,
Yeah.
And I think the best we can do is be aware of it.
Yes.
And just keep practicing, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the question that I've got for you is, it isn't necessarily bad is what my premise is, right? Mm-hmm. Unless it's harmful and we know it, but we still stay in the role, or it's harmful and we don't know it.
Right.
And so how do you strike that balance? How do you know? Because I just don't feel like being able to get back in. It's just, you hear stories, well, I haven't seen that person in years and it was just like two peas in a pod, et cetera. And the only way that can be is that you're both reverting in some way to what you were like when that was going on. Does that make that a bad interaction? Not necessarily.
Oh, no, I don't think it has to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thought I had was about siblings, which is be curious about who your siblings are as adults.
Yeah.
Have that curious conversation so you learn how we're different. And that part is a challenge, but it's still interesting. I know I interact with at least one sibling way differently than I used to. I am able to have direct conversation. You hurt me. When you did X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
I love you, but that hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a adult response.
Yeah. Right. Right. You're able to stay in your prefrontal cortex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you're having an emotional response, it's not taking over. So, no, babe, I don't think it has to be bad. I don't. Again, I think, it can be playful. It can be fun. I think what often happens is that one person isn't okay with the relationship the way it used to be, and they want it to shift. And maybe somebody doesn't want it to shift.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so then you have a choice. Do you allow yourself to step back into that space in order to maintain relationship with that person? Do you risk the relationship having some level of abandonment if the person doesn't like how you've grown, right? One of the things that we talked about in school, and it's going to be really pushing my vocabulary, but like we like homeostasis, right? Like we don't like it when one person changes the dynamic, because then we can't predict what's going to happen, and then we don't feel safe. Does that make sense? And so I think, like, being around our family, I think we can go in with an intention like, I'm going to hold my boundaries this time, and I'm going to be this way at Christmas. And then we get in there and then we don't, right? And so then we're giving mixed messages, right? Because we're not really clear. We are we're not really clear yet. We just know that we don't like it, but we don't know how to do it well. We haven't. So if we're only practicing it on holidays, we're probably not going to get good at it. Does that make sense? And so I think, how do we practice it? Well, we have to practice it in other relationships too. But maybe our partner relationship doesn't trigger us as much as our family system does.
Depends on the circumstance.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Anyway, I just think it's really complex. But no, I don't think it has to be negative. I just think that if we grew up in a household where you said whatever was on your mind, that probably still happens when you're an adult. And if you grow up in a household where you avoided topics, that probably still happens as an adult. And so if we want it to be different, how do we do it? And how do we hold on to ourselves? And I think anytime we change, it's messy. We talk about the pendulum swinging. It's hard for us to change like incrementally. It's like in order for me to be around my family, and I'm using this in general terms, I can't be that because it's too easy for me to slide back. So I can't be. I can't walk in. If we're going to use, like, let's say percentages, I can't be 5 percentage points different around my family in order to maintain myself. We often need to be farther away from that. So maybe 50% different or 75% different in order to hold on to ourselves around them. And so when we change, we tend to swing the pendulum all the way over here. And then maybe that doesn't work. And we're really trying to find this place in the middle, but I don't know how to get from here to here. I have to swing all the way over here in order to come back. But I think we get so much pushback when we swing all the way that it just takes so much energy that we just like, forget it. I'll just keep playing that role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too much pushback.
I'm thinking about my inner knowing checking in.
Yeah.
And when I leave, even if I do step back into that role, I don't leave feeling bad most of the time. Last Thanksgiving, I've talked about this before on our show where we were playing a game and it got hyper competitive, crazy. Yeah. And then there was some passive aggressiveness that came out from my brother-in-law. And then there was overt aggressiveness by me. I mean, not, I'm going to beat you up, but just words.
Yeah.
I went into lawyer mode and it was ugly, But in any event, most of the time, I don't have anxiety going in.
Yeah.
I don't think anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't have bad feelings coming out. The thing with Libby was just interesting. I was like, I think we've been doing that.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is not lump all of us together into how god awful, it can be that I've lost all boundaries and it was just a train wreck to go see my family, et cetera. And I'm sure there are clients that you have that is what that's like, because there can be victimizers. Yeah. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's not always that way.
No.
And so I'm wondering, if you leave the family interaction and you use some introspection, how did that go? What am I feeling? If you feel steady and clear, or whatever it is your guidance system is, your knowing.
Yeah.
Then to me, was it bad? I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's such an individual process. I think your comment is helpful because I think, can we do that in the middle of it too? I mean, not,
Try.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody just sees their family for the day, right? I mean, there's plenty of people that travel and you're with your family for 2 days, 5 days, maybe 7 days, right?
Yes.
And so I think, even if it's just a day, if you notice yourself anxious or, depressed or angry, can you go into another room and get grounded and breathe and, I don't know, pause for a moment.
Absolutely.
Listen to some bilateral music. Imagine roots growing out the bottoms of your feet, trying to just find yourself again.
Sure. 15-minute nap.
A 15-minute nap. Yeah.
Meditate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sit quietly in a chair and enjoy a cup of tea or glass of tea or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get yourself present.
Right. Right. And we talked about this a little bit on one of the other episodes, which is, go into your observer. I think if you can enter, family gatherings like that, and just watch, I think you'll learn a lot about your system and, more likely to understand the role, that you play in the system. But again, understand that that's been cultivated our entire life. I have a client right now who is moved back home to live with their parent and just been struggling so much. And in our conversation recently, recognizing that it's like, I'm just a teenager again. Like I'm in the same house and I'm in my siblings' room and it's decorated the same and the living room's the same and the kitchen's the same and everything's the same. Yeah. And when I lived here the last time, it was not good. Yeah. It's not good. And so even though it's not that, anymore, they haven't reverted to that period of time, literally, emotionally, it's taking them back. Being around their parent, being in the same surroundings, again, their body is responding.
Back to your hometown.
Sure.
People you went to school with. Yeah. All those things contribute to this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it can no different if people go to a high school reunion.
Right.
Right? I mean.
That's why I've never gone. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, we revert right back to our roles. Yeah. No, I went, I think maybe twice. And that was difficult because I'm like, whew, I am so far away from that, that it was just hard, to, I don't want to go back to that role, that I was playing when I was a teenager. I was glad to be done with high school. So again, respecting the physiology piece of it, right. That what's familiar, what we talked about, with her is because everything's decorated the same, could she even just get different bedding, spend $50 on a 7-piece comforter and sheet set that's not her old sister's bedroom. Does that make sense? Can you just take down what's on the walls and put it under the bed? And then if your parents want to put it back when you're not there anymore, like it's still there, but you've created a space that is where you are in your life right now, not, where you were 35 years ago. And so, and it does matter. I just don't think we pay attention to it. And so, so some of this isn't, I just want it to not be this like shame reaction, like I'm just not doing it right when I'm around my family.
Right.
I want there to be an understanding that this is a real physiological thing that happens, our body, even if we're not going to our parents' house or, something like that, it can, again, still being around the people that we're most familiar with at a particular time in our life, our body goes there. I mean, what it makes me think of is, like people who have Alzheimer's and they play music that they liked in their teens and 20s and their body goes right back there, right?
Right.
And they're able to communicate and dance and sing and, I mean, it just your body has a response to this too. It's not just your mind.
Right.
And so I just want that to be clear. And so observer is the walking in and being like, oh, okay. Yeah, like I know that about my dad and my brother and how they interact. I'm just seeing it differently instead of being reactive to it. I'm just like, oh, right. Or this is what my mother and my brother, that's what their relationship is. Or this is what my two siblings' relationship is, whatever. If we can go in it with that intention that we are experimenting and practicing, that we're here to learn as opposed to get sucked into the energy of what is familiar, I think we can have a different experience. But a lot of people have anxiety around family gatherings, and they feel like they have to go. They'll get a lot of guilt or shame thrown at them if they don't. Or they just avoid completely. Yeah, but it is a particularly stressful time for people. Even if you don't notice stress around your siblings, I'm just saying that for other people, it's very stressful. So.
Sure. And I guess ultimately it comes back to how do you, and we've talked about a few things you can do, but how do you maintain the best relationship that you can have? Whatever it may be. It may not be the greatest relationship ever, but it's still a relationship with family. When you're not together but once a year or a few times a year, and still hold on to yourself.
Yeah. For me, it would be willing to have a conversation with your parents or your siblings. It's having words that are not threatening, but again, if it's a relationship that you're wanting, that you're reinforcing, that I want connection with you, I just can't do that old role anymore. It takes me to a place that's not good for me. It's not healthy for me. I don't like that part of myself. But I think what?
Let me stop for a second. So what if the response is, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just aware that when I'm around you, I don't like how I act. Whether you see it or not, I'm snarkier. Whether you see it or not, I'm more passive aggressive. And I leave here and I don't feel good about myself.
Right.
I don't want that anymore. I want a relationship with you. I just don't want to have it be that way because I don't feel good when I leave here. And it doesn't mean that you won't have family members that are dismissive of that, but it's really about you holding on to yourself, right? You being direct about what you need. It doesn't mean you're going to get what you need or want, right?
Well, it's scary. People want to hold on to that because it's scary, and it's not. It can be abusive, right? That just can be an aspect of all this, but it can also just be fear of losing that, whatever there is left of that relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I think it can react, well, I don't want to change that because then what do we have? If you're not going to have contact throughout the year and have conversation, right?
Right. Yeah.
To see each other as you are now. So that's just an added layer of, what do you do going forward? And so it just strikes me that it's a process with family of moving in that direction versus you just show up once a year and have to go through all this. But that's maybe really simplistic. You have to deal with it all the time.
Yeah. 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 What I was talking about earlier practicing and holding on to yourself with every interaction, whether it's in person or on the phone. If we keep giving mixed messages, people are just going to hope that we don't follow through.
Quit acting so weird.
Yeah. But if we really do.
You're really just not yourself.
Right. Actually, I am more myself than I have been.
Not the me I was 25, 40 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. But I think it requires us to do our work, in regards to, who am I separate from my family? And, for some people that isn't safe. And they're not going to find out who they are separate from their family. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. They get that choice. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to find out who I was separate from my family. I didn't want to play a role, that I had learned. It wasn't great, my role. I mean, maybe I got some attention, maybe I got laughs. I mean, I was a good storyteller. But it was all pretend. Mm-hmm. It was all about safety. It wasn't about me knowing who I was. It wasn't about me being able to hold on to myself or making decisions for myself. I mean, at some level, it was all fear-based. And what I feel fortunate about in my family is that I feel like, with the exception of one sibling who just doesn't know me anymore, I think all of my siblings and my parents have adapted to who I am. I'm not saying they like it all the time, but I don't really get pushback. In that regard, it's been successful. They haven't abandoned me. I have a relationship, and I think it's healthier than it ever was.
I'm just thinking of people looking back with nostalgia, you remember when Theresa, she was such a good storyteller, I just wonder what happened to the joy in her life,
Maybe.
That sort of stuff. And
maybe.
My point being, we have to stand within our own truth, right?
Absolutely.
That I like who I am. If we're working on ourselves, I like who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm okay if you're nostalgic about who I used to be, but it's not who I am today. Right. And I can love you regardless.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we could allow people to be different, what I would say, for the people listening as you step into the holidays, can you allow people to be different?
Let's turn that mirror around, right? Yeah, it's true.
Can you allow...
Because you want it too, right?
Right. Someone to be in a different role, or are you wanting them to be predictable? Because we can want that for ourselves to be in a new role, but not want the people around us to be in a new role, right? And so...
We're so complex.
We are so complex. So can we allow that as well for the people in our family and our friends and our partner, right? Because that's tricky too, we've heard a lot of stuff over the years. People don't really change, and that's absolutely not true.
Right.
If they're making effort to change, we actually can get healthier. Or I don't even know why I'd have a job, but can we allow our children to grow? Can we allow them to be someone different than they were when they left the house, 18, young adult, whatever? Or do we want them to stay in a role when it was most safe? So, yeah. So, yes, look in the mirror. Can we allow it to?
Yeah, and also the pause between stimulus and response, as we've talked about many times.
Yeah.
We learn that every time we meditate.
Yes.
To incline our minds to more of that. And I think at this time of year, that's really important, especially when all this is going on, you're feeling the anxiety, etc. To check in so that you're not reactive. Because when you're reactive, you're much more likely to just drop right back into that old spot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting having a conversation today with someone who was talking about how they make a commitment essentially to do Christmas different every year, and then they do the same thing every year. And they're like, why do we keep doing that, right? And I was just saying, for me too, I mean, I wanted, Christmas to be different, and I just keep every year doing a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different. Recognizing that, it may be different for my kids, but, they aren't, 1, 6, 10, and 14 anymore. And, am I buying things for them that mean anything out of some expectation or old story, or sense of, needing them to have the perfect experience, or, can I risk an epic fail by doing something different? And so to me, same. Am I willing to risk doing something different? Yeah, that might be respectful of where they are now. And it can still be fun. Like last year I bought, for the first time, everybody got matching pajamas. I had never done that before. And then it was funny because we're not Jewish, but I bought Hanukkah pajamas. But I didn't know that. I just liked them because they were blue. I mean, everybody thought it was funny. But it was nice. I just keep trying new things. This year, I bought a big group gift for my kids, something that they could do together. So, and maybe they'll be like, what the heck?
Or maybe their next will be they're all doing it together.
Right, and maybe so. I
It's
don't
that
know.
parental, wish,
Yeah.
And it may be, or it may not. We'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I'll bet it is, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
At least with a couple, maybe all.
So,
I
always
like it.
experimenting.
I like it.
Yeah. Just willing to risk. I mean, I think it's what you were saying earlier is, am I willing to risk loss? I think it's hard. I don't know often that we are.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Oh, that I just need to give the whole exchange with Libby some thought. I want to be as supportive as I can for her to be stronger in getting through the stormy seas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I do a pretty good job of that, but a few times we were not in that space.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a bad interaction. I
No.
didn't think it was any,
No.
there was nothing, nobody was angry, nobody was upset or
Right.
anything else. It just was our speech.
Yeah.
But we both thought we were really cute.
I'm sure.
But when you're talking about, can I accept change? And I don't think that's me trying to, and sorry, this is personal processing, but it is fascinating to hold on to that. Maybe there's a piece. So that's what I want to give some more thought to, because I like it when she talks business. Because I just sit there with wonder.
Yeah. Like,
Where did that person come from?
Yeah.
You rock.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And then I also like her kind, funny younger self too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it has to be bad. I just think being aware of it. And again, is it playful, or is it really about safety and fear? And again,
Oh gosh.
yeah. I mean, I just think all we can do is pay attention and see.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not about that, but I don't know. Now you got me wondering.
Oh,
No, there was a lot of stress. She started the new job. It's scary. There's a lot of pressure with some really harsh, what do they call it? Measures that they have to meet,
sure.
metrics,
Yeah.
harsh metrics in this new job she has. And I was thinking maybe that was, it was safe to not have to deal with all that and to get younger,
Yeah.
and then maybe I was responding, but maybe I started it. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? It's interesting as you talk about it. It makes me think about, when I was, after I lost the baby and almost died. And I was in the ICU. My mom coming, and I absolutely was a little girl. I was afraid, confused. And the best thing she could do for me was to nurture me like I was. Right. Her moving into an adult space and trying to cognitively talk me out of my fear would not have been helpful for me. Her allowing me to be in that space when I was afraid, not living there, because that wouldn't have been helpful either. But in that, level of distress, that my mom could allow me to be a little girl for a while. Yeah, was helpful.
Well, it's, I think, an important point too, because I think I myself in this conversation have been putting some judgment on it. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it just is. We just are, and it's what we need in that moment.
Right.
You just need it to be held.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting, babe, because you brought it up and and I didn't know, until we sat down. But when I look back, in those, 3-4 days that we spent with her, I didn't even notice.
Oh, I thought you said, I noticed that. I just hadn't said something.
No. I have noticed that happen.
In the past. Sure.
Right. No, I didn't notice it. It didn't stick out to me. So so even if it was happening, there wasn't a, ooh, what's that about happening for me? So, yeah. And so maybe it was because, I knew she was in distress. I know it's not how she and I converse, when she and I were talking about, the stressful things,
Sure.
But I haven't been around that long.
I would agree. It wasn't extreme. It was just enough that I noticed.
Yeah.
I could probably think of 2 instances.
Yeah.
But just interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting just to pay attention.
And not necessarily bad.
Right.
It's just what we both needed at that moment.
Again, all of it.
Also, that's part of just observing our lives, right?
Yeah.
Why did I do that? And do I want that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Be intentional.
Yeah.
Or try to be.
Well, try to be, right? Because
we all slide in and out of that, right?
Sure. And is it even something that's worth having a conversation about if it isn't something that feels like it's been harmful, right?
Agreed.
I mean, I'm not saying this is easy stuff. None of this is easy.
No.
Right? But, what we don't want to, right, is if it really was something that wasn't detrimental to you, it's not impacting your relationship. I mean, you've opened the door. You've given her permission many times the last several years to let you know if she's struggling with something.
Right.
And so, to me, it's kind of like, is it one of those situations in this case with her, is it kind of like the over apologizing where I'm so observant of my relationship with her. I'm trying to make sure I don't do anything that's harmful. And so then are you valuing it as harmful when maybe it wasn't? I mean, I don't know, babe. I mean, I'm just saying that I think it's kind of like, again, the pendulum swinging, right? When we're trying to create change, it's hard to know where the balance is. So, I mean, I'm not saying I know. It's just what's coming to mind. And maybe it was fine. And maybe it was the nurturing she needed. And maybe she needed that playful piece. I don't know. I just know she is trying to find her way. And it's hard and scary and uncertain. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Even with all my wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for the conversation, babe.
Thank you. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.